I mean, do you want to be in that world, or do you want to be in a world where everyone is helping you out? I mean, that
Yeah.
when you're sitting in a team meeting, people are engaged and like building on people's ideas. So it's like I throw out something and it doesn't immediately get shot down by somebody at the end of the table say, we tried that, or,
Yeah.
we've done that before, or, that's not going to work. It's
hmm
somebody saying, oh, that's a good idea. And what if we thought about this? Or have we
hmm
considered this? Where it's a build upon.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a totally different environment.
There's a controversial piece making its way around the interwebs right now called The Great Feminization by Helen Andrews. Despite its edgy title and often incorrect conclusions, in my opinion, it's generating some useful conversation. How can men and women work together in a way that is beneficial to all? Rachel Wallis Andreasson brings a POV to this topic informed by 30 plus years as a leader. And she collaborated with 3 other authors to create The Sixth Level, a book about leadership that infuses a distinctly female perspective into this conversation. The Sixth Level model is derived from the narratives of 16 women leaders, as seen through the lens of self in relation theory, which defines the psychology of women as oriented to connection and care. It creates a framework for creating cultures where no one wants to leave. It reframes soft skills as leadership strengths, and it introduces 4 core differentiators: intrinsic motivation, mutuality, justness, and ingenuity. We also touched on the frustrating truth that a lot of feminine work is not valued very highly: caretaking, teaching, social work, etc. I think we do well to bring the full spectrum of approaches to the table, from the feminine to the masculine and anything in between. Let's see what we learn. Personally, I'm grateful that work cultures have evolved to a place where I can be more vulnerable, more caring, and more connected in my approach. If you prefer the boiler room world, have at it. Welcome to the DesuckifyWork podcast, the show where we cut through the BS and find ways to make work more fun, more human, and less ridiculous. All of which makes your business more profitable, by the way. If you enjoy this one, please like, share, rate, review, or subscribe to the podcast. Let the desuckifying begin. Here's Rachel. Okay, Rachel Wallis Andreasson, welcome to the DesuckifyWork podcast.
I have been looking so forward to this ever since I met you in Phoenix.
Yes, that was so much fun. And there was a lot of fun stuff during that event. You guys were just launching the book that you co-wrote with a few other folks. So we'll dive into that in a bit. But before we go too deep, I just want to give you a chance to introduce yourself. What do you do for work, and how'd you come to be doing it?
Okay, yeah, I feel like I'm on my third chapter. I worked for our family business for 24 years, and I'm still a shareholder and
Mhm.
working with my family to bring in the third generation.
Nice.
And then I pivoted to not for profit and became an executive director for the next 6.5 years at our synagogue, and
Hmm.
loved that work.
Yeah.
And during that time, the sixth level was born, the concept and the book.
hmm
And I had always told the synagogue, like when I was 55, I knew I would leave and do something else. I didn't know what at that time, but just opening up space for, whatever the next chapter is.
Yeah.
And the book came about, and pretty much speaking and consulting with my co-authors on the sixth level.
Awesome. Well, I want to dive deeper into the sixth level in a bit, but just at a quick overview, what is the sixth level, and what's the quick synopsis of the book?
Yeah, the sixth level is a framework for how to create a culture within an organization or a team or a family that no one wants to leave. So that's the
Mm.
synopsis.
Oh, I
And,
like that.
it was always intriguing to me because in all my years that I worked for our family business, HR and training and people were always a part of my oversight. And I remember reading the book Good to Great by Jim Collins in
hmm
like 2005.
Yeah.
And so I love the book just because of the different concepts he talked about, but mainly the flywheel. Like I was always
Mm.
intrigued by how does a company really create a flywheel?
Mm-hmm.
And, even though within our own company, we focused on a great place to work and engagement scores and higher retention, I just never had the recipe for success, like no roadmap to outline, Rachel, this is what you need to do to
Yeah.
create a culture. And so that's what the sixth level is. And yeah, and we're excited about it because there's so much applicability to many, not only companies, but like I said, families.
Uh,
And so, anyway, so we can get into it, but it's universal principles that fit a lot of situations.
I love the breadth of it, the fact that it can speak to organizations as well as families and everything. I think that's really interesting. Just the line like that you don't want to leave, like that's really interesting to me. And I think we can explore a little bit of what that means, but it kind of makes me wonder, you know, this is the Desuckify Work podcast. Was there ever an experience you had at work that where you felt like, things aren't so great? I mean, I know you worked in your family business, so it's a little different for you, but what
Yeah,
what was
yeah.
like
Well,
what was the suckiest work experience?
okay. Okay. Well, it's easy because right after college, I went to Miami, Florida, and I ran Taco Bell restaurants.
Hmm.
And I was in the manager training program, and it was a new concept that Taco Bell was trying in this key market. They had actually brought executive down from Gallo Wines out of New York, never been in the restaurant business before.
Hmm.
I wanted to work for Taco Bell because our family business is convenience stores primarily, and we were
Hmm.
having food in them at the time. So I wanted to understand the food operations.
Yeah.
But Carlos really created such like a strong network. So you had like legacy Taco Bell managers that had been running these locations for a long time, and then you had these brand new college graduates.
Hmm.
And he just took, you felt like he took a personal interest in your personal and professional development. He brought
Hmm.
us together every month for a meeting. He brainstormed with us on how could we increase revenue, like could we put up these little carts like in high traffic areas and take the food there and sell them out of these food carts before food
Hmm.
trucks were
Wow.
ever even a
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
And it just felt like you were on a team and people had your back.
Hmm.
And then I got engaged and I transferred with Taco Bell to the Fort Myers side. And I had completely different experience. This person was not creating any kind of camaraderie. She was, I like Carlos, as soon as he got to my location, he would come in and shake my hand and say, "How are you doing?" And,
Hmm.
let I'm going to be here. So when you have 15 minutes to sit down with me, come out to
Yeah.
the front. I'll be waiting for you. And this other person, she was like, I didn't even know she was at the location till like, just looking out the perimeter and seeing her through the windows with her checkboard
Uh,
and her checklist and coming in, 15 minutes later and just total not asking anything about how the store's running or what's going on, but just saying, these are the issues that I saw walking outside,
well.
let's go sit down and talk about them. And and it was worse because at the time Hurricane Andrew had just happened and there
Mm.
were a lot of highway robberies happening, just from a safety perspective. And
Yeah.
it was just like no teamwork, no sense of collaboration. And
Wow.
so, yeah, so I left that job. And I feel like that's, the difference between having a good culture and having one that doesn't work, and Gallup, I was just catching up on some stats. Like Gallup just reported that 37% of employees will leave their job because of bad culture.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't doubt that. I mean, I think most folks who are probably listening or watching this right now have been or maybe are currently in a bad culture. And it's if you feel like you can leave, that's the first instinct, right? Because and we'll come back to this too, but it can be hard to fix a broken culture depending where you sit in the organization. So you often feel like, what choice do I have but to leave?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so certainly as somebody who's running a company, you'd like to think, oh, I can influence that and not have that many people thinking they want to leave, which means they're either literally going to leave, which costs me money, or they're not engaged. And then that's costing me money as well, too. Right.
Absolutely. Yeah. So many people are talking about the quiet quitters, and it's
Yeah.
probably people that are not engaged, not enjoying their job, don't feel part of the team, and
Yeah.
but also don't want to go through the effort because of various reasons of finding another job. So,
Yeah. Hmm.
but the challenging part today is, and I, uh, like just even in our own family business, we do a weekly newsletter to all employees, and
Hmm.
it comes out on Friday, and there's always an article like to think about this or recognition for the employees, and employees can recognize employees, or the company can recognize what they did, and birthdays, anniversaries, whatever. But if you
Yeah.
scroll to the very bottom, there's all the open positions.
Mm-hmm.
And I counted up last Friday, and we have close to 100 open positions, and we have 1,400 team members at our
Yeah.
family business. And the problem is, and I'm not saying our family business has a great culture. We just did a leadership retreat on culture,
Hmm.
so not saying that, but I'm just saying for those organizations that are struggling with culture, the problem in the United States is that there's like over 7 million jobs that are open right now that employers cannot fill. And
Hmm.
so, I mean, 7 million is extreme. It's like the entire
Yeah.
city of New York,
Yeah.
nobody's working. And
Hmm.
so then you think about the Gallup poll at 37% of employees leaving. So if you have a bad culture and you have your employees leaving, but you have this gap that there's not enough in the workforce to fill all the positions, then you're
Mm.
just in this downward spiral. And
Yeah.
think about the people that are left, those people that are covering the shifts and doing the work because they are short staffed
Mm.
and they
Yeah.
can't take vacation. And, it is a downward spiral. And so
Yeah.
I think, it's urgent because culture is so critical today for companies to be successful, and they can't fulfill their mission if they don't have employees to help them execute, unless you're
Yeah.
just a sole proprietor and you can just do it on your own.
Yeah, which is nice, but yeah, that's not the case for many. And I wonder, as you've started, you worked on the book and you're seeing and talking to different people, like what seems to be the biggest thing that can make a culture suck?
Oh God, the list is long.
Okay.
Yeah, the culture can suck when you have a boss that takes credit for your ideas or never asks for your opinion. It can
Hmm.
suck when you feel like everyone's out for themselves, and or that nobody understands why they're doing what they're doing. There's no purpose, no accountability, no transparency. People are uninformed, and I don't feel emotionally exhausted because, most people, like you said in your podcast, spend most of their time at work.
Yeah.
And yeah, when when it can be different, when you can go to work and feel the energy and the empowerment, the teamwork and the camaraderie and the connection, then that brings you energy. So then, then you're more likely to listen to podcasts and think about how can I improve myself
Yeah.
and my own leadership? What ideas are out there that I could bring back to my team to make it better? I mean, leadership is definitely fluid. The culture shaped by our actions and behaviors every single day. And,
Hmm.
it can fluctuate, but yeah, it really sucks to be in a bad culture.
Yeah, I mean, it's as you were kind of listing out that long list, and I know that list could go on even longer. Like, I fear, and I know I've experienced this at times. Like for a lot of folks, they'd be like, "Well, yeah, that's just work. Like, I don't get listened to. I don't. Da, 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 da. I don't feel like the things I do actually make an impact. I don't. I don't. I don't." And you know, I want to come back to this idea of the sixth level because it's this intriguing term, the sixth level. I'm like, okay, what is that? Like, what are the first five levels? Is part of the question that comes up for me. So how did you get to this idea of the sixth level, and what's it really trying to uncover for people that gives us some hope that all of those things you listed out don't have to be the way things are?
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to share a little bit of story. When I became the executive director of the synagogue, I had been a volunteer HR chairperson for 10 years. And
Hmm.
so they brought me into this Sunday night meeting and 10 people, past presidents and board members sitting around the table and the clergy and just talking about the morale issues within the organization and not
Hmm.
really knowing why it was so bad at this point in
Hmm.
time. And so they asked me, because I was the chair of the HR committee, could you go interview the staff?
Yeah.
And so I did do the interviews and yeah, and just realized that they didn't, yeah, have direction and leadership and transparency. So basically I did the roadmap of the sixth level. But okay, so fast forward, I left that job a year ago, and just last week one of my employees that was a direct report of mine, gave me a card and said, I just want to say thank you because you showed us what was possible.
Hmm.
And so I'm going to say that because I do think that sometimes you are in a bad culture and you can't see your way out of the box. You can't
Hmm.
get out of the rut and you don't really know how to do it. But there's one of the four steps, and the one core differentiator I like to start with is intrinsic motivation,
Hmm.
because there are people in the organization that know in their heart and their gut that it can be better,
Yeah.
and they can see what is going on that's not right,
Hmm.
and they can lead by example and start making changes within processes and systems and communication to create the better way. And
Hmm.
then once other people start to see that there is a pathway to success,
Hmm.
then other people start coming along. The burden for that one person or that group of people becomes
Yeah.
less because more people start to believe in it and become engaged.
Mm.
So it's a long way to answer your question, but I do think sometimes it is hard for individuals to see the way out.
Hmm.
But if there's one person that's intrinsically motivated, that knows it can be better and starts taking those steps to put in the other three core differentiators,
Hmm.
because when the four are in place, that's when the flywheel happens.
Okay. So what are
Okay.
those for? I mean, you mentioned
Okay, so
intrinsic
you start
motivation.
with the person, yeah, that's intrinsically motivated, which is really a deep desire to have this best culture.
Hmm.
And then the first thing that they probably start with is mutuality, which
Hmm.
is this whole care, this connection, this two-way empathy, this respect and alignment. So these are core principles. So
Hmm.
mutuality is like a big umbrella, and lots of tactics can be there, or examples of how to reach mutuality,
Yeah.
like listening sessions. And there's lots of ways to build up this principle, but
Hmm.
mutuality is the second one.
Yeah.
The third one is justness. And justness is clear roles and responsibility, accountability. It's about all the things you do to build trust within an organization. It's transparency. It's doing what you say you're going to do. It
Hmm.
is building trust, and the sixth level calls that justness.
Okay.
And so then the third one is called ingenuity. And that's
Mm.
where all the innovation starts happening. That's when you have an individual, you have your team that feels connected. They know where they're supposed to be going. They feel aligned. They're gelling as a team. They have trust in the organization, trust in the supervisor, because
Hmm.
there's these clear roles and responsibilities and transparency and accountability. And so they feel good about what's happening in the organization. Then
Hmm.
they start thinking about, how do we make it better? Like
Hmm.
the innovation starts happening. Well, maybe we can add this revenue line, or maybe we could change this process to make it better for our customers. And so,
Hmm.
we have 16 stories in the book, and they all exhibit these four core
Oh, cool.
differentiators in different ways. But the one story that I really like to share and try to do it briefly is the one of Lisa Lochner, who took over as president of a rural hospital in the
Hmm.
year 2021. So you can
Hmm.
imagine, heels of COVID and just the desperate, deep morale that was just kind of in the toilet,
Yeah.
just because of being exhausted by having to cover so many shifts, being isolated, not only because of the equipment they had to wear, but the just the environment that they were in, and
Hmm.
just completely depleted. And so that's when she stepped in as president, but she did specific things to instill each one of these core differentiators, like, and started with listening sessions and then created a mantra and just did multiple things. And in the end result, the hospital that was founded in 1960, it has broken so many records since
Mm.
that they've never broken before. So like
Wow.
the highest patient satisfaction score, the highest engagement score with the highest engagement participation, just the difference, like when being able to recruit people to come work at the hospital, and those people saying, like, I thought, like, the mantra is one team, one heart. So
Mm.
the employees that come in, and when Lisa talks to them after, like, at onboarding, and then after 30 days, they're like, I thought this whole concept of one team, one heart was really cheesy.
Hmm.
But when I actually got here and started working here, I know that it's real.
Mm.
Like, you can
Wow.
feel the culture. And as a patient of the hospital, I mean, you do feel it. I mean, you do feel cared for, and it's not just, you know, I don't know. It's the extra step that they give you to show you where you're supposed to be going, or make sure
Hmm.
what's happening, and or if you ask to get printouts of your x-rays, or
Right.
it's just like, yeah, we'll have that right away. And just the difference is
Mm.
very tangible
Yeah.
as an employee and as a consumer. So the sixth level, yeah, these four principles really do work, but it's just not easy, like
Yeah.
you referred to earlier. It's not easy to, turn a big ship in a different direction.
Yeah. I mean, I love the example you gave. One, just because I know that the healthcare space is probably one that deals with these issues on a magnified level. I mean, particularly coming off of the heels of COVID. I mean, there were some significant morale challenges. There were actual literal like physical safety challenges in a lot of healthcare
Yes.
spaces. And to be able to come into a place and turn around in the face of that, that's pretty impressive. I mean, it's funny, right? When you mentioned the one team, one heart, that idea, my first reaction was like, yeah, that's a little cheesy. But I also, my reaction was, a lot of places try to do that, meaning they try to have some kind of a thing that you rally around. But what they don't do is all the things you talked about that this woman did, which was like follow through on
Yes.
it, deliver on it, actually talk to people about it, like really get in there,
Yes.
right? I mean, it's almost
Yeah.
if you say it and then you don't deliver on it.
Yes, for sure. I mean,
Yeah.
it cannot be a poster on the wall.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. And
Mhm.
I know Lisa went through a lot of steps, like first just to say, could everybody wrap their head around this? Does everybody believe in
Mhm.
one heart, one team? And
Yeah.
then it was like the second year that she said, okay, can we agree that this is it going forward? And this is how we're
Mhm.
going to behave. And this is going to be our litmus test every
Yeah.
day. And then when people didn't behave that way as one team, like, so maybe the finance person didn't tell the operations person that something was changing in the budget, or vice
Mhm.
versa. The operations person bought something that, was totally out of line and didn't communicate with the finance person. And, when Lisa found that out, then she goes and talks to those individuals and
Yeah.
say, we committed to one team, one heart, and this
Mhm.
behavior is not in alignment with what we agreed to. So how can we
Mhm.
fix that? How can
Yeah.
you show up differently? And it takes, I guess I can't emphasize enough the amount of work it takes.
Yeah. Yeah.
It takes, there's trade-offs because it takes so much work. I know
Mhm.
Lisa does rounding every month and she shadowed every department, but
Mhm.
she is intrinsically motivated, and because she cares
Yeah.
about the team members, she cares about the hospital, she cares about the community. But also now she has a whole team of people that are helping her, think about how to grow the hospital, how to increase
Mhm.
patient care. And clearly it's working because, they're hitting these historic outcomes that they never have. And even within the entire hospital system,
Yeah.
they have risen to the top relative to these outcomes. So
Wow.
it's definitely possible. And when you really want it for all of those reasons, you
Mm,
can get it. It's just,
yeah.
it's work, it's actual work.
Yeah. And what I hear when you say that is it's actual work, it's hard work. But on the flip side, it's hard work not doing this. It's just, it's like
That's
hard
true.
work, like trying to keep all the plates spinning, and it's hard work trying to like keep things from falling apart. Right. And,
Yes.
and in many ways, like, I think about the CEO role, and it's like the CEO role can be one where you are a bit of a like plugging holes in the dike kind of a thing, and you're just a problem solver. Right. But I don't think
Yes.
that's why most CEOs want to be CEOs. I think they want to do what you're talking about, which is make real impact, do things that are pushing in a positive way. What I think many maybe have lacked and do lack is what you've started to build with this framework, right? It's how do I actually do this? Because I know how to sort of keep this plate spinning and plug the holes and all that, because they've had practice doing that the whole way up, because that's how the company culture maybe existed. But now it's like, ooh, I want to turn this ship around. Okay, I don't know how to do that. And so that's what I found
Yes.
really intrigued by this model. And you know, the sixth level name does intrigue me, because I think this is true. I read something on the site for the book that it's the sixth level. Is that derived sort of from Maslow's hierarchy of needs? Is that the idea? Like there's the five, and this is like superseding that. How did that come to be?
Yes. Yeah. Well, I said there's four co-authors and like I
Yeah.
said, 16 contributors, but
Mm-hmm.
I said even graduating from a rural school at Cuba, Missouri, that I studied Maslow's,
Mm-hmm.
hierarchy of needs. So we felt like it was something that everybody could relate to. And
Yeah.
yes, just even within an organization, I mean, people need safety, food, shelter, security, belonging.
Mm-hmm.
But Maslow's fifth level is self actualization, which is where all leaders ultimately at some point need to get to. I mean, you
Yeah.
have to understand how to lead others and what are the right behaviors, but it doesn't go far enough for
Mm.
what's needed in companies today relative to leadership. So the
Yeah.
sixth level that goes beyond self actualization is called self in relation. So
Mm.
yourself in relation to others is the sixth level. And
Okay.
it is actually based on a psychological theory that Dr. Jean Baker Miller wrote in
Mm.
the 60s. So, yeah, so
Okay.
we feel that we, take a lot of work that has been done before the sixth level and build it up. I mean, just
Mm-hmm.
like Jim's Collins flywheel, or Dr. Jean Baker Miller's theory of self and relation, or
Mm-hmm.
even primal leadership and anything that has to do with emotional intelligence. So we're
Yeah.
just talking about that is all, these are all foundational building blocks, and we're just moving it forward.
Yeah. I mean, the idea of self in relation is an interesting thought. I'm sort of doing the equation in my head. I mean, is that about, if self actualization is to kind of have ourselves kind of emerge and be fully
Your full potential.
activated,
It's your
so to
full, yeah,
speak.
your full potential.
The
Yes.
in relation is now like how do we connect that with others around us? What's the idea there?
Absolutely, because we are all humans and
Yeah.
we need that connection.
Yeah.
And especially in an organization or even in a family unit, yes, you have to be connected to each other. You can't just have a bunch of self-actualized people, because those are all individual contributors.
Yeah.
So there has to be leadership today, has to be able to bring everybody together and
Mm-hmm.
get everyone in alignment and have everybody feel engaged. And so that is
Mm-hmm.
yourself in relation to others.
Yeah, and it connects to some ideas I've heard elsewhere, including a couple of other guests on the podcast, around ideas like group intelligence and things like that, where it's this idea that um, we can manage each person to bring their best, or we can think of how do we, the integration of those people is sort of that 1+1 = 3 idea, that if we can unlock what's possible when people come together and do even more than the individual can do, that's something, in the face of all the crazy problems that are in the world today and the new technology, like I think we need that. Like it feels like an evolution, right? Is that
Yes.
kind of what you're trying to get at here?
Yes, yes, we definitely feel like it's an evolution, a revolution. I think it's very much needed. And yeah, and with AI, I think, this really gives people the opportunity to connect more and,
Hmm.
raise the human spirit element because AI can do so much. I mean, they can, I could have spent 4 hours on a spreadsheet before writing up
Yeah.
a business proposal, and now I can get it in 60 seconds. So, what do
Hmm.
I do with that extra 3 hours? If I could
Right.
go have a one on one conversation, if I could have a, figure out the connecting pieces. So you make sure that everybody understands the purpose of what we're trying to do and where they sit, what barriers do they have that they're facing, how could we improve things here, how could we do things better.
Mm.
So the more time for the human element, because you think about it, I mean, just most supervisors say, I don't have time for that. I don't have time
Hmm.
to do I don't have time to
Yeah.
give somebody feedback. I don't have time to follow up when that person showed up late. I don't have
Mm.
time to find out why did they show up late. So,
Yep.
we should really be leveraging AI in order to increase the human connection.
Yeah. It's so interesting because it often feels like we're definitely not doing that. Meaning, it's like, how can we use AI to just sort of usurp all of the things that humans do? And I like the way you think of like you mentioned. Okay, now I did that spreadsheet in 60 seconds. What do I do with the 3 hours that I have left that normally would do it? Like that's a really good prompt for ourselves to kind of go like, okay, I can be much more efficient. Great. But that's not enough. I mean, like,
Yeah.
what are we getting by just being more efficient? Like, how can we
Or
think bigger? Yeah.
yeah, where's the value add for your
Yeah.
time? I mean, I
Mhm.
just think about like when I'm in the synagogue, like one of the things I love doing most was just like calling a member and saying, "We're so glad that you're a member of the synagogue. Like,
Yeah.
why did you join? And what makes you continue to be a member?" I mean, think about the time that you could even just give your customers. And if
Hmm.
you're, like if you're in a support division within a company like HR, IT, I mean, what if you actually could spend more time in listening sessions with those internal customers? I mean,
Yeah.
how much more knowledge would you gain and productive that you could be? So many projects
Yeah.
fail because you just didn't really understand the scope in the first place. And so
Yeah.
to be able to leverage the technology to have more conversations with humans only, yeah, helps everyone be more productive.
Yeah, and when you describe that, I think about like one of the things I think that we is sort of untapped in a lot of organizations is we don't always know the people well enough, and therefore we don't know what they can bring that we're not aware of, right? Like we sort of
Yes.
know their job description and like, okay, you can do that one thing. Okay, great. But no person is just capable of one thing. And so if you can spend those time listening and getting to know people, then when an idea starts percolating, it's like, oh, let's go grab those three folks because, wow, they can really add value here. And in the current state, it's like, I don't even barely have time to think of that idea, but I certainly don't have the time to then go, who's right for this? And then I'm just kind of making assumptions about people and all that kind of stuff. And bias is coming into play and all that stuff. So it feels like it's freeing in a way in terms of unlocking the actual
Yes.
human potential within an organization.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's so exciting when you start thinking about that because it could be a person and they are doing this one job right now, but you
Mm-hmm.
had no idea, and maybe they're in accounting, but you had no
Yeah.
idea that they really are mechanical and all they do is
Mm-hmm.
work on cars and you have
Yeah.
a facility division
Mm-hmm.
and you have an open position and just to be able to help people succeed personally and professionally in the work environment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's just yeah, it could totally yeah, catapult because if AI is taking a lot of the mechanical parts of the thought process, the jobs, there's so much to unlock, like you're saying, the human potential
Yeah.
and to see where this could go.
Yeah. And so, as far as the coming back to the book, what I understand, I want to get your take on this. A lot of this is influenced by the way women leaders have shown up And certainly that would maybe contrast to the historic, more male dominated type of leadership. So what are some of the things that women leaders have demonstrated that led to this idea of the sixth level and some of the differentiators?
Yeah, so the sixth level is based on women's social psychology.
Mm,
So, yeah, just in the book is interesting because it's divided up basically into three sections. So, the first three chapters are more historical in really the way that typically women and men are socialized.
hmm.
So, women are typically socialized to care, to express emotion, and to
Hmm.
ultimately lead with the ethic of care. So how does that show up in regular everyday life? And these are generalizations
Sure.
about gender, not,
Yeah.
specific to every human being, but women are the caretakers of their
Hmm.
mothers, their mothers of the children, or they're taking care of parents.
Hmm.
Women typically have are when you think about like all the not-for-profits or the
Hmm.
volunteer is in the school, the parent, the PTO
Yeah.
clubs, and all of these things, like just when my kids were growing up, when you come to these meetings, the majority of them, 80% of them, if not
Yeah.
90%, are women. And so
Yeah.
women have a natural inclination to do this work. And I want to say it's not most of the time it's not paid, either they're
Right.
volunteering or they're volunteering in an organization. Oh, we'll take care of the holiday party, or we'll take
Hmm.
care of the recognition,
Right.
or we'll write the birthday cards, because it's important work for the relationships. It's
Yeah.
important work for the ethic of care and taking care.
Mm,
So, and then on the other side, men are socialized to have autonomy, to seek separation, and then
mm,
ultimately towards dominance. So we do
mhm.
have this gap. So the sixth level is for men and women. It is for
Yeah.
all leaders, but it's this recognition that we are all socialized in different ways. And so
Yeah.
when women read the book in these four core differentiators, I remember we were at the conference board in New York and talking, this was women executives that worked at Fortune 500 companies. And
Hmm.
we were explaining the four core differentiators. And this one woman said, "Oh my God." She's like, "I just had a performance appraisal." And she's like, "And I could not put a name to the way that I lead, but now you have given me four labels for
Mm,
how I lead. So now not only do I feel validated, but now I am going to get credit for it because I
yeah.
have a name for it." So, yeah, so it's so exciting to have a name,
Hmm.
not only to have a roadmap and a framework to build a great culture, but for the
Yeah.
way that many people, men and women, lead, to be
Hmm.
able to explain it and
Yeah.
say, that is the way I lead. Like it was never written down in a book. So I didn't really know if it was just like, how was I
Mm,
coming up with this? But
yeah.
yeah, but so to be able to document it, be able to have 16, of these stories that show how these women put these into place. Yeah, it's super exciting.
Yeah. I mean, I think having the sort of concrete examples and the language around it, a lot of work, at least as I see it, is storytelling. And what I mean by that is the ability to talk about what we're doing, and to share why we're doing it. And so to be able to articulate it with language that's crisp and clean, and people can go, oh, okay, I get that, as opposed to just maybe like, maybe you're looking at somebody going like, I don't fully understand their leadership style. Like, and you might not hate it, you might just not understand it. And you're like, so when somebody can then tell you, here's what I'm doing, here's why I do it, and here's why I think it matters, I think there's a lot of benefit
Yes.
of that. And, I think about this, the distinctions between the socialization of men and women. And so I think about it, okay, as a man, I'm reading this book, and I will say, like, a lot of these things are things that I think about. Like, they're not like, oh my God, where'd they come from? Like, and
Yeah.
I'm sure that's true for a lot of men. But there is, like, I get the undercurrent of like leading with your power, intimidation at the extreme, but at least like pushing,
Mhm.
pushing people. And um, so if I'm more familiar with that, and maybe I even think, that works that works well. What what can you tell me or another man to kind of go, there's more here, like, and help them see, like, it's not about like renouncing whatever you've done before, but it's more like an invitation. Like, what is that invitation?
Yeah, I think all of us, all of us are on this continual
Yeah.
learning journey. And no matter where you are on the scale from dominance to ethic of care, we're human, so we
Hmm.
have setbacks and we have different situations that trigger us. But I think I go back to what you were saying about, like, do you want to be juggling all these things and being so frustrating and coming home every night and complaining about how nobody
Mm.
does their job right and how you have no help to do it and you lost that customer account because you couldn't meet the deadline? I mean, do you want to be in that world? Or do you
Hmm.
want to be in a world where everyone is helping you out? I mean, that
Yeah.
you're when you're sitting in a team meeting, people are engaged and like building on people's ideas. So it's like I throw out something and it doesn't immediately get shot down by somebody at the end of the table say, we tried that, or,
Yeah.
we've done that before, or that's not going to work. It's
Hmm.
somebody saying, oh, that's a good idea. And what if we thought about this? Or have we
Hmm.
considered this? Where it's a build upon. Yeah, it's just a totally different environment. So I feel like, I mean, and we know through, research that most people leave their job because of their supervisor.
Yeah.
So if you're a person that cannot retain people on your own team, if you're in a team that has high turnover, if you're in a team that you cannot fill the jobs that you have, if you are losing out on your RFPs, if you are not growing your business, then that would be the mirror to hold up and say, maybe I
Hmm.
need to find a different way to lead.
Yeah. And one of the things I think you mentioned maybe on the website for the book, but I was drawn to it is that some of these qualities that you're calling out here have this historic perception as like softer or weaker qualities, like, to care about justness and, things like that. Like, and I certainly don't see them that way, but I wonder, like, and this is again maybe from the male perspective, if you're thinking about it, like, if power is the language you're used to recognize how much power and strength there is in showing up these ways, that to be somebody who invites, people to be more connected, that actually creates strength. I mean, literally, like, if you look at like how material science works, strength happens through creating like bonds and connections, right? And
Yes.
the idea of ingenuity, like, that can feel a little fuzzy. Like, what do you mean by that? But like, every great moment in history was guided by that value, right? So, what, how do you help people, or does this matter? But like, the idea that these are actually like really strong differentiators, not sort of the classic soft skills.
Yeah, and I think, yeah, I mean, there's been many times in my career, that I have been told that I'm too soft or I'm too into
Yeah.
the people.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I truly believe in my heart, because I've seen it work, where
Yeah.
you can take care of the people. You can be connected. You can be transparent. You can
Yeah.
have accountability and clear roles and responsibilities and get a team that is, amazing and pushing
Mm-hmm.
things forward. And so, um, is it soft? Yeah, but I think soft is needed. I mean,
Yeah.
soft is what is valued. And, I think we could do a whole nother podcast on power. Somebody told me the other day that the person that has the most power is the person that has the least interest in changing.
Mm. Well, that's sort of scary in a way.
It's very scary. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, power, yeah, like I said, we could spend a lot of time dissecting power and where
Yeah.
power comes from. But at the end of the day, the only people that we have the power to control are ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And, and in our own environments or choices to make, whether I'm in an environment that I feel is lifting me up, that's moving me forward or not, then I have a choice to
Yeah.
leave and find something else. I also have a choice to be able to, take a roadmap to build a good culture and want
Hmm.
that for others around me. And, everybody is not going to jump on this, and everyone, and it depends on what seat you sit in. But when the
Yeah.
pain gets great enough as a leader for you or for the organization, that's usually when people want to make a change.
Yeah, no, I think that's definitely true. And I would just add to what you're saying, like, like people have said, you're too into the people, so to speak. And I don't know, for me, there's so much strength in caring for people. And I think we do a pretty bad job as a society in valuing that. I mean, you look at sort of how much we pay for sort of the quote unquote caring professions and all that stuff.
Yes.
And it's
Yes.
oddly undervalued. Despite the fact that I think if you just talk to any one person, they would go, well, of course, those things are super important, whether it's teaching or caregiving or social work or whatever. And then so when you bring that ethos into the corporate environment, it's like, well, of course, that would work there too. Like people genuinely like being cared for. People genuinely like having a sense of connection with people. I mean, right now, the surveys are all over the place. There's this loneliness epidemic in society and at work. And
Yes.
and so if you can help foster more of that connection, you are literally strengthening the organization. So there's a gap there that I love that you guys, I feel like even just the way you're using the language around the book invites people to see this whole idea, this whole lens of being a human who cares about other people through the lens of strength and power and ultimately, I would argue like the superpower that we need for where we are as a society right now.
Yes, I totally agree. Yes, humans are wired for connection. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we talk about, how to desuckify like a whole organization, but
Yeah.
we talk about it in the book. It's chapter 9, and it's just like, what if we could apply this not just to organizations, but to the world? I mean, I have got to believe in my heart that 80% of the human population out there wants peace, wants
Mm-hmm.
everybody to be fed, wants
Yeah.
everybody to be valued. And yes, and we even have a diagram in the book about, domestic care and the value that, you know, is placed on it. And we could talk probably a whole nother episode about, just the monetary value that people get
Mm-hmm.
from getting paid for something versus the intrinsic value. But
Yeah.
it is important work, and and I hope that one day it will change, because yeah, taking care of people is critical and only getting more important. And even today I talked to other people about this. I said, I definitely think, like, we have the convenience stores, but we also have transport drivers, and transport
Mm-hmm.
drivers get hazard paid because they are delivering hazard, flammable gasoline to the stations. But I said,
Mm-hmm.
today, people probably need to get paid because when they have to show up for work, there's so many hybrid jobs and so many
Mm-hmm.
times that you don't have to. But when you have to be face to face with a patient, or face to face in a
Yeah.
restaurant getting your food and delivering a service, yeah, those to me are those should be recognized as higher paid jobs.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a bit of a longer term project, but I think the movement, I think you're sparking it, at least in your way with the book you're creating here. And I'm curious because I know in the beginning you mentioned that this is great for organizations, but it's also can help families. I want to come back to that because that's really intriguing to me. How does this framework and this way of thinking, how can it show up in a family, and what, I love the notion of like not wanting to leave. Like some people, like they say, you can't really leave your family, but people do, right?
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
what, how do you create this different kind of relationship with your family through these principles?
Hmm. Yes. So just as we talked about before, with that some people within an organization really can't see how it could get better. A lot of times that happens for our families.
Yeah.
You're just in this this emotional baggage state where you grew up
Hmm.
with siblings or
Yeah.
parents, and you cannot see how you can get beyond the dysfunction.
Yeah.
But what we do is we talk about the sixth level as having a person and principles as a relational steward. So
Mm.
you're right. Sometimes families, have boundaries, are not going to get along, but they're also not maybe connected through a family business or really have to engage. So
Yeah.
ideally, it would be great, and you can use these principles to create a culture within a family that elevates the relationships. So
Mm.
all four core differentiators will elevate the relational aspect of family members.
Mm.
But what we talk to and have consulted is more high net worth families that are part of family offices where they do have to work together.
Yeah.
They are tied financially together. And a
Hmm.
lot of times those family offices have a financial steward and a lot of financial advisors, accountants, investment bankers,
Hmm.
lawyers. But what happens, like we can hear about it in the news from the Murdoch family,
Yeah.
is the legacy you want to leave financial when your family is in shambles and you have no relationships? I mean,
Yeah.
is that the legacy you want to leave? Or do you want to employ the principles of the sixth level and have this relational steward hat on and be able to create a legacy where relationships are as important as the financials?
Mm.
So how do individuals grow? Me, but then you have the collective we as the family. So how do the
Yeah.
we and the me come together? And these again are four principles that are a roadmap to achieving that.
Yeah. I imagine that family business dynamic must be tricky at times, right? Because you've got the family dynamic, then you've got
Yes.
the family as a business entity dynamic, and then you've obviously got when you're an organization with 1,400 people or whatever, most of the people are obviously not part of the family, right? And
Yes.
how does that work, right? Because that can be tricky just from a like perceptions that there might be some bias built in, and also just can I communicate in the same way with folks who are in the family versus folks who are not? I mean, what has your experience taught you there?
Yeah, it is the culture. So,
Mm-hmm.
it's the culture you create to have, open communication and transparency. And like, within our family, one of our highest objectives is family harmony. And we work towards that and, run a
Mm-hmm.
litmus test between the decisions or the governance decisions we're going to make to say, is this helping us achieve family harmony or is it hurting us?
Mm-hmm.
And then we have our company and how the company's run, and then shareholders are sometimes on the board of that, and we run that with the management team. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think it is about your guiding principles and what are how you want to show how you want to show up, like Lisa did with the one team, one heart, and ours is with family harmony.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it is, again, it's all a lot of work,
Yeah.
and it takes a lot of communication and time.
Mm. Yeah. I wonder if for certain families, if starting a family business would be a way for them to come together more, or if it would create more challenges. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's lots of, besides starting a business. I mean, if you are already a family, I
Yeah.
mean, you could even think about, everybody putting in $20 or $100 a pot of money and making a collective decision on combining the money to make a more impactful gift to
Yeah.
a not for profit. There are
Mm-hmm.
small ways to start working together.
That's interesting.
There are ways to, yeah, to have, team, I hate to say team building, but, to get to
Yeah.
know your own family members as people. Sometimes we
Mm-hmm.
see our family as a lens from what we saw them when we were 10 years old or
That's true.
15, and
Yeah.
you don't see them as an adult, or you don't continue to ask the questions about how they have evolved as humans. We're all evolving as humans and
Yeah.
what their goals and needs are. So it is all about yourself in relation with others in order to
Mm.
elevate the relational experience.
Yeah, I think within families it can be pretty one dimensional the way we see
Mhm.
other, and the idea of, you know, having collective things to do together that allow you to get to know each other in different and new ways feels really interesting to me. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Just saying that. I mean, yeah, if your family has never been to a theme park together, or your family's
Right.
never gone to on a picnic or a float trip together, I mean,
Hmm.
just the different experience to see each other in a different way also, yeah, is very helpful.
Yeah. So I'm curious for you with all this work you're doing, what mark are you trying to leave on the world?
Yeah, I mean, if the sixth level could ever be known like Six Sigma was when I was
Mm,
working, Six
yeah.
Sigma was like the standard for quality and efficiency.
Mm,
I would love for the six levels legacy to be it is the standard for leadership.
I like that. Yeah. I think, you know, Six Sigma is very much in the vernacular. But for me, I think the sixth level is a much more appealing way to think about things. It's much less about just process and efficiency and much more about all that connection and relation, um, which I feel like that's the currency of leadership right now. I think it needs to be. Um, I'm curious, what's one thing any of us can do right now to improve our connection with others, whether that's at work or family or whatever?
I would say ask a question and listen to what they say,
Mm,
start a conversation.
yeah, yeah. It's amazing how often we ask a question, but then we don't listen.
Yes, don't listen and don't text,
Yeah.
have coffee, ask somebody to lunch, really get to know somebody and yeah, what their goals are and maybe how you could help support them.
Yeah, I like that. What conversation aren't we having right now, sort of broadly, that you think we should be having?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, I feel like there's so much, polarization. I just feel that and I don't know how much technology plays into it that
Hmm.
because I'm not as big on social media as I should, but
Yeah.
just because I have adult children, like the feeds that they get, if they're interested in food, they keep getting more food. But there's
Hmm.
also, very polarizing topics, around, world peace
Yeah.
and hunger and things that I just wonder. I feel like we have to have more conversations because if we're just in the rabbit hole of our own feed and our own mindset, and
Yeah.
we're not having a conversation to understand how it is from another perspective. At the
Mm,
end of the day, it's kind of like a leader. You gather all this information, you find out, different pieces to make a good decision. But we
hmm.
as humans also have to do that. We have to talk to people that we know don't have the same viewpoints as us, that
Yeah.
have a different perspective in order to broaden our own, yeah, mind about
Mm.
how we can make the world a better place.
Yeah, I definitely see that, the polarization, the bubbles that we live in. And I think those bubbles can trick us into thinking we're having the conversations because I'm, messaging and communicating with people, but we're all in the same space as opposed to, you know, you know, having more diverse voices that we can listen to. And I think it takes a little bit of work because the social feeds are, like you said, if you like food, you get more food. If you like cars, you get more cars. If you like this particular political viewpoint, you get more of that political
Yes.
viewpoint. And usually more and
Yes.
more extreme versions of it is the way those algorithms are designed. So
Yes.
um, it's hard to get out of that. But I think doing it there might be good practice for how you can bring it in as a leader when you suddenly got all these different voices and people have 20,000 different ways of wanting to move the business forward. Okay, well, as a leader, I need to be able to listen to that, hear it, and then kind of pull together my own understanding of it. Yeah.
Yes,
Mm,
yes, yeah. Yeah, I feel like it's just so much more important today because of the feeds and the algorithms and
yeah.
AI and the bots, it's just like those are my when I go down the rabbit hole of fear, it's like where is this information coming from and how is it changing people's mindsets and just the intolerance it creates.
Yeah.
It just breaks my heart that yeah, the intolerance and just needing more humanity, needing more understanding, needing, yeah, to want the best for everyone.
Yeah. Yeah. I am on board with that. what do you think work's going to look like in 5 years?
I hope it just continues to get better and better. I really do. I was just at a session last night at WashU, and it was on AI and using AI in private businesses. So they had one, tech investor where he
Hmm.
said they actually analyze over 1,000 different software technologies every year, and they pick three to invest in. So it just shows you the rate of change
Yeah.
and the funnel that's happening with
Wow.
technology, where you have two private business owners and how they're trying to adopt AI and the
Mhm.
challenges they face in
Yeah.
knowing what to do and changing jobs and and the fear factor that you have to deal with, that people think they're going to lose their job,
Yeah.
where if they could come out ahead of it and say, these are the value add things that we have not had time to do, these conversations with our customers, these
Mhm.
focus groups, these
Yeah.
interactions. And, so I feel like if people can leverage AI to do the non-human connecting stuff, the work, then I hope that in 5 years we will all have figured out how to connect, better, stronger with each other and improved our organizations in that way, because we are in value add positions, taking
Mm.
care of customers, talking to customers, having more conversations about, how the market's changing, how the industry is changing, and trying to get ahead of it in that way.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that feels like the hope where things can go, and I definitely see the need for more of it. So let's hope that that's where we continue to go. I know I've asked you a handful of questions here. I'm curious if you have a question you would want to pose to our audience.
Wow. I would guess I would ask, who could you reach out to today that maybe you have a difference of opinion with, or
Mm.
you've had a rub in the past, and you just want to have a conversation and start reconnecting, or maybe you have
Mm.
an employee that you're just kind of on the fritz with and
Yeah.
don't understand why they're not showing up, or why they have showed up late, or why they're not meeting their deadlines, and just coming to it with a completely open mind and saying, hey, I've noticed a change and I just want to understand what's happening. Like, what's
Yeah.
happening in your life? Is there anything I can do to support you better? Is there any barrier that's preventing you,
Hmm.
to not getting this work done? Because I care about you and I care about the company and I want to see us both move forward,
Mm.
And so just could you think about one person to have a
Yeah.
conversation with today?
Ooh, I love that. Awesome. So, if you could wave a magic wand and fully desuckify the world of work, what does that world look like?
Mm, yeah, that world to me, given that I know what the sixth level means and represents, that every individual operates at the sixth level and every organization operates at the sixth level. And whether that's a government agency or a private enterprise or a public company, yeah, the hope of what the world could be like and how humans could support humans if everyone operated at the sixth level, I think, yeah, would be a dream come true.
Awesome. Well, let's keep pushing to get more people exposed to this sixth level way of thinking, and get it to become more in the vernacular, and more just how we do things as opposed to some aspirational way of doing things. It's just how we show up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I want to have a little fun before we go. So what I do with every guest, and if you, I know you've listened to some of my shows, you hear sound effects, cats meowing, and all this other stuff. And I always invite the guests to add a sound into our library. So what sound do you want to add to us here to include in the show?
Yeah, so this was the fun part, but because I'm Jewish and we just had our New Year, Rosh Hashanah, and we blow the shofar, which
Mm,
is a ram's horn, on
okay.
the new year, and then end with Yom Kippur, which is basically reflection and thinking about, who we want to apologize to and how we want to lead a better life in the year to come. And
Mm,
so they blow the shofar. Now, it is very challenging to blow this ram's horn. And I have a backup YouTube if I like literally cannot get a sound out.
okay.
It's been haphazard. So I'm going to give it a shot.
Okay. Let's see.
And hopefully it works.
Okay.
It didn't. And this is what it's supposed to sound like.
Okay. Awesome.
So that's what I'm going to be working on. I'm going to
Okay.
teach
Well,
my grandson how to blow the shofar.
yeah, no, it's very cool. I mean, I like um, I like the tradition of Yom Kippur. I'm not Jewish, but I always liked the spirit of that. And so is the idea with the horn, is it sort of to symbolize kind of getting all of that out, or what's the story behind
Yeah. So there's many symbols for the shofar. When I was in Israel earlier this year, it can be blown. The shofar can be blown like years ago when they didn't have a way to gather people from the fields that were
it?
herding sheep. It
Yeah.
can be to gather. It could be a sound of warning, like here, there's
Mm.
whatever,
Yeah.
somebody's invading or there's a war. But for Rosh Hashanah, it is a call for self-reflection.
Okay.
So it's a call that it's a new year, and there are specific, very different calls for the shofar that each have different meaning. But when we hear the shofar, we think about, a call for self-reflection and
Mm.
improvement in the year to come.
I love
And so, and it's a beautiful sound when you can do it correctly.
that. I think it's always nice when things take a little more work to like get it, right? It's like more rewarding. Like when you finally get it and it really hits that sound, it's got to be a little more special because it took a little work. Yeah.
Yes, for sure. For sure.
So
Yes.
the last question I want to ask you, Rachel, is just how can people find out more about you and the work you're doing, the sixth level, all that good stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I would love it if anybody would check out our website, which is www.the6 is spelled out SIXTH level.com. Just because if you click on it and you put your email in, you will also get our monthly newsletter, and you can
Mm-hmm.
find all 4 co-authors as well as all of our contributors. But I'm also
Mm-hmm.
on LinkedIn, and I am very open to having conversations. I know our co-authors are. If anybody's curious about the 6th level and wants to do a Zoom with us and just have a conversation, we are all about that.
Well, that's awesome, and I highly recommend people check it out. The event that I met you at in Phoenix was wonderful. It's this whole concept just is really a really good conversation starter to get us talking about how leadership can look different, especially in the face of some of the challenges that we're facing right now. So thank you, Rachel, for just sharing more about it, sparking more thoughts and curiosity in my own mind, and I'm sure in a lot of the listeners as well. So thank you for coming on.
And before we close, I have to give a shout out to Jennifer Fondervey, who connected us, and who was also on your podcast, and is just one badass woman that I
absolutely definitely shout out to Jennifer. Yeah, no, she was gracious enough to invite me to that event, so I appreciate that, and she was a really fun guest on the show. So well, with that, I wish you well, and thank you for coming on.
Thank you, TJ. I enjoyed it so much.
Awesome. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone, for tuning in to the DesuckifyWork podcast. And a huge thanks to Rachel for bringing an innovative look at leadership to the show. You can follow Rachel on LinkedIn and check out the6thlevel.com to learn more about her book and the philosophy behind it. If you enjoyed the conversation and would like to help your teams bring their absolute best to work, I invite you to schedule a free half-hour discovery session. Type meow into the calendar invite, and I'll also send you a free DesuckifyWork t-shirt. Bye, everyone.